I didn't move to Dunhill for this kind of drama. I thought I'd escape the stress, the constant noise, and just maybe, my anxiety would simmer down. But the truth is, Dunhill was the setting for my worst nightmare. One I wouldn't have believed myself if I hadn't lived through it. The first time I saw the clown, I was on my balcony, staring at the park across the street. It was just standing there. I assumed it was a prank, a stupid attempt to scare some kids. It was October, after all. I remember rolling my eyes and going back inside, thinking I'd forget about it by morning. But it didn't go away. Every couple of nights, I'd catch a glimpse of it, same spot, staring in my direction. I told Daniel, my boyfriend, and he shrugged it off, said it was probably teenagers. He always had this way of making my fears seem small, a paramedic, used to real emergencies, real problems. But this felt personal. Deep down, I knew it was different. It got worse. One night Daniel was on a late shift and I heard it. A knock, soft, almost polite, followed by shuffling. My heart sank. I crept to the window, barely breathing, and there it was, standing by the gate, looking right up at me. I called Daniel, voice shaking, but by the time he picked up, the figure had disappeared. He told me to calm down, said it was probably a stress-induced hallucination. I could hear the tired disbelief in his voice, and it hurt. But I knew what I saw. The next morning, I found a red balloon tied to my fence, a note dangling from it. Smile! That one word wrapped itself around my ribs, squeezed until I couldn't breathe. I went to the police, and they just gave me this look, like I was some hysterical woman, letting her imagination run wild. The way they placated me with nods, I could have screamed. Daniel tried to comfort me, set up cameras around the house, but nothing made me feel safer. And 2 nights later, we saw the footage, the clown standing at our door, staring right into the doorbell cam, unmoving. It stayed there for hours. I knew this wasn't just a prank. This was targeted. I could feel the obsession radiating from it. I started digging, combing through local news, trying to find anything that matched what I was experiencing. That's when I found the article about a missing child, 4 years ago, right around Halloween, right around the time clowns began appearing in Dunhill. My heart dropped. I couldn't help but feel the chill of recognition. This wasn't random. One night I woke to circus music, faint, almost like it was drifting from far away, but I knew better. I knew it was close. I looked out, and there it was, closer than it had ever been, standing by the patio door. It waved at me slowly, then pressed a finger to its lips, shushing me. I screamed for Daniel, and he ran in, but by the time he looked, it was gone. He tried to reassure me, but I could see the fear starting to seep into his eyes too. He was finally beginning to understand. This was real, and it was escalating. I convinced him to help me do something about it. We waited until we saw the clown again, then followed. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I was desperate. We chased it through the neighborhood, all the way to the edge of Dunhill Park, where it slipped inside an abandoned maintenance building. Daniel wanted to call the police, but I couldn't wait. I pushed my way in, flashlight shaking in my hands. The place reeked of mildew, dampness, fear. We found him, Joshua. He wasn't wearing his mask. He looked almost normal, fragile even, but there was this twisted smile on his face, like he'd been expecting us. "You're just like them," he whispered. "You pretend you're not scared, but you are." Before I could react, he pulled out a knife. Daniel lunged at him, and they struggled. It was chaos. I can still remember the way Joshua's eyes lit up when he saw my fear. He enjoyed it, thrived on it. Daniel managed to overpower him, but those eyes, that joy, it seared into my memory. The police came finally, but I knew it wasn't really over. Joshua was arrested, but his smile stayed with me. I still see it in my dreams, twisted, triumphant. I moved to Dunhill to escape, to find peace, but instead, I found a nightmare that I'll carry with me forever. Story 2. It was October, just before homecoming, Everyone was buzzing about decorations, dresses, and who was taking who. I was the head of the homecoming committee, which sounds more impressive than it really is. Basically just a bunch of late nights in the gym with crepe paper and glitter, trying to make a dusty old gym look less like, well, a dusty old gym. Nathan was there with me. He and I had been friends since we were kids, but lately, he was different. Distant. The kind of distant where you still see each other, but you don't really connect. I knew his parents' divorce had hit him hard, but what could I do? I had my own issues, trying to keep my grades up and make my parents proud. My older sister, the one who had aced every exam and got into an Ivy League, left some pretty big shoes to fill, and I was trying desperately not to disappoint. The first time I saw the clown, I thought it was a joke. I mean, who wouldn't? There it was, standing by the trophy case in the hallway, just a glimpse of a painted smile and ruffled collar before it vanished around the corner. Nathan laughed when I brought it up, said it was probably just some sophomore trying to go viral, but something about it didn't sit right with me. The stories about Mr. Halloway, the janitor who everyone said used to be a circus clown, started creeping into my mind. I had never put much stock in rumors, but that night, something about the empty hallways felt wrong. It got worse. Over the next few days, more people claimed to see the clown, near the football field, staring through classroom windows. It wasn't just a prank anymore. It was a thing. Nathan seemed to enjoy it. He even joked about setting up cameras to catch the ghost clown. But I wasn't laughing. He was different, a bit darker, and he was feeding off the chaos the sightings created. I could see it in his eyes, something simmering just below the surface. Friday night I stayed late again, alone this time. I had to finish some last-minute details for the decorations. The gym was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you realize just how many noises a building makes when you're all by yourself. I felt it before I saw it, that presence. When I looked up, there it was, the clown. Closer this time, its face painted in grotesque detail, eyes wide and hollow, a smile too large to be anything but terrifying. My heart pounded. I ran, locked myself in the supply closet, shaking, texting Nathan, begging him to come. No reply. I stayed there until I couldn't hear anything, until the faint laughter that echoed through the hallway faded into nothing. Nathan finally admitted he'd seen it too, but he played it down. Said it was Halloway, that he was just messing with us, probably trying to scare off anyone who stayed too late. Something about protecting the school. But it didn't feel like that. It felt sinister. I started digging, trying to find out more about Halloway. Turns out, he really had been in a circus years ago. There was a fire. His partner died. Everything fell apart after that. The rumors made sense now. Him, wandering the school at night, clinging to a past that had long since burned away. But still, it felt like there was more. Then Jason went missing. He was just a junior, a kid I barely knew. But I remembered seeing him arguing with Nathan earlier that week. The clown sightings stopped. The entire school felt tense, like we were all holding our breath, waiting for something to happen. I confronted Nathan, asked him if he knew anything. He denied it, but the look in his eyes, there was fear there, and guilt. That night I got a video. It was shaky, dark, but I knew what I was seeing. It was the gym. The clown was there, and behind it, Jason, tied to a chair. The clown waved at the camera, then the video cut out. My stomach twisted. My hands went numb. I called Nathan. I didn't ask. I demanded. Meet me at the school. He hesitated, but he came. He owed me that much. The school was dark, empty. We snuck in through a side door. The air was cold, the kind that makes every breath feel like ice in your lungs. We found Jason in the gym, tied up but alive, and then the clown stepped out of the shadows. My heart dropped. It wasn't Halloway. It was Nathan. His face painted in that sick grin, his eyes hollow. He'd snapped, all that anger, all that pain. It had twisted into something I couldn't recognize. He had been playing a game and we were all just pieces on his board. But then I heard footsteps, and the real Halloway emerged from the shadows, a knife in his hand. everything turned into chaos. Nathan lunging at him, Holloway striking back, the knife clattering across the floor. I grabbed it. I don't even remember thinking. I just swung. Nathan's eyes met mine, wide, terrified. I don't remember much after that. Just the cold gym floor, the sirens in the distance, and Nathan lying there, his face streaked with paint and blood. The headlines called it a tragic homecoming nightmare. But to me, it was something else. It was the night everything I thought I knew shattered. The friend I'd grown up with, the person I thought I could trust, had turned into a monster. And I had been the one to end it. People said I was brave, that I had saved Jason, but I didn't feel brave. I felt broken, like I had lost something that I'd never get back. And maybe, in a way, I had. Story 3. The town of Mirth Hollow has always felt like a scene out of a storybook, with its cozy, tree-lined streets and colorful harvest festival that drew visitors from miles away. It was why I moved there, hoping for a quieter life, something different from the constant noise of the city. I had this idea of a peaceful small-town life, you know. But as I learned, even small towns have their secrets. And Mirth Hollow had a secret I couldn't leave alone. It all started with a rumor, a clown, always appearing at the edge of the woods around festival time. I'd heard about it from Ellie, the bartender at the only decent bar in town. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's business, and Ellie was at the center of it all, collecting the town's gossip like a hobby. When she mentioned the clown, I could see that it unsettled her. She laughed it off, but her eyes kept flickering toward the window, as if she half expected to see something staring back. That first night, I was walking back from the bar, the air cool, my head buzzing just slightly from a few beers. I saw something, a flash of color just at the edge of the woods. It was quick, gone almost as soon as it appeared. I chalked it up to imagination. Maybe it was a prank or someone in costume, but then I got back to the cottage I was renting. There was a red balloon tied to the gate. It bobbed gently in the breeze. The word "welcome" scrawled on it in shaky red letters. I told myself it was just a kid messing around, but it felt wrong. Like the air had been sucked out of the night, leaving only silence. The sightings didn't stop. Every night I would catch a glimpse, that same flash of color, the silhouette standing too still just inside the tree line, and then the balloon. Always another balloon. It was always red, always with a different message. Hello, nice to meet you. See you soon. It was creepy, sure, but as a journalist, I've always been the curious type, the kind of guy who likes to dig into stories, especially the weird ones. So I decided to find out who was behind this. Ellie warned me to let it go. She got serious in a way I hadn't seen before, her eyes narrowing, her hands wiping the same spot on the bar over and over again. She told me about a little girl named Sarah who had talked about the funny man she'd seen while playing near the woods. That's when Ellie's fear became real to me, not just the kind of fear you get from hearing a ghost story, but the kind of fear that came from knowing something bad was happening, something beyond her control. I started hearing more about Tommy Blake, the recluse who lived in a rundown cabin just outside town. People said he used to be a clown with a traveling circus. They said something had happened. Something bad. A child had disappeared, and Tommy had never been the same since. So I went to see him. His cabin was filled with old circus posters and dusty props, like relics of a forgotten time. He denied everything, of course. He said he hadn't been near the festival in years, but his eyes told a different story. There was fear there, recognition even. When I mentioned the clown, his hands started shaking, and I could see the panic in his eyes. The night of the Harvest Festival came and the whole town was out. Kids in costumes, lights strung across the square, the smell of cider and popcorn in the air. But all I could feel was that gnawing sense of dread. Ellie found me near the edge of the festival, her face pale. She told me she'd seen Tommy, dressed in his old clown costume, slipping through the crowd. Her voice trembled as she spoke. She was scared, and that scared me more than anything. Then, the worst happened. Sarah went missing. I remember the chaos, the parents shouting her name, the music cutting off, the laughter replaced with desperate cries. I knew I had to confront Tommy. Ellie insisted on coming with me, her fear overridden by some sense of responsibility, or maybe just desperation. We made our way through the dark woods, the air thick with the smell of damp leaves and something metallic, like blood. We found Tommy in his cabin, dressed in that faded clown costume. His face was a mess of smeared makeup, his eyes wide and wild. He kept saying it wasn't him, that it was the clown, the real clown. He talked about something that had followed him, something that fed on fear. It sounded crazy and I didn't believe him. But Ellie did. She saw the terror in his eyes, the way his whole body shook. She believed him. We heard Sarah before we saw her, a faint cry coming from deeper in the woods. We ran, and that's when I saw it. The clown. It wasn't Tommy. It was something else, something wrong. Its smile was too wide, its eyes too dark, like there was nothing human behind them. It moved in this strange, jerky way, almost like it was glitching in and out of reality. I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. But Ellie didn't hesitate. She lunged at it, screaming. Her fear turned into something fierce and angry, and then, just like that, it was gone. The clown vanished, leaving only the echo of its twisted laughter. We found Sarah, curled up at the base of an old oak tree, terrified but unharmed. We carried her back to town, but when we got there, Tommy was gone. His cabin was empty, the door hanging open, the wind blowing through the broken windows. The town tried to move on, tried to forget, but I knew I never would. I could still hear that laughter, late at night when the wind howled through the trees. The clown of Mirth Hollow was real, and it wasn't done. Not yet. And I'm still here, waiting, listening, knowing that someday it will come back.